Hello guys. Welcome to Diablo the Primordial. This video is the continuation video after Truth Revealed. So if you have not watched it, then please watch it. The link is in the description. And please check out my second channel Top Anime Sensei for the light novel of Tensei. So without any further delay, let's start. But before we start, please like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates. What do you think will happen if the spear that could pierce everything and shield that could block everything come together? Also, justice itself is something filled with contradictions. When you support one side, justice will lose its impartialness, and absolute justice is nothing but fantasy. Because of this ambiguity, my father kept Justice Lord Michael incomplete. It just became a power to protect without offensive power. Justice without force is powerless. But if you have the power to protect it, you could fulfill everything. That alone is what made it complete. Milam indifferently informed Lucia, like a teacher enlightening a foolish student. And now, her hand was slowly extended towards Lucia. Impossible, I won't accept it, I will never accept such a thing. Justice is the only. Milam's hand touched Lucia. Your absolute defense is gone. Soon, your abilities will disappear too. Before that happens, I shall perform your last rites with my own hand. Stop it. I'm Lucia, Velda-sama's absolute believer, the one and only. Be gone from my mother, mind deathbreak. Without mercy, Milam's destructive capability was fully displayed. At this moment, the Mana's created form Justice Lord Michael named Lucia had been completely annihilated. Milam embraced her mother's corpse with a lonely expression. There was no warmth in the body, as it was freed from the effect of the ability, its time which had stopped begun to flow instantly. Lucia's body withered, turned into dust and disappeared. Good night, Okawa-sama. Please, rest in peace. Milam didn't have memories of her mother's warmth. For Milam, playing with her mother's sacred remains was a sin worthy of a certain death. She had achieved her goal of freeing her mother from Lucia, who was being protected by the ultimate defense. Milam shall teach the next sinful person the depths of her wrath. The time has come. The name of the person she should judge was Velda. The person who impersonated her father and played with her mother's corpse. From now on, Milam unleashed her suppressed wrath. The heaven was about to be filled with waves of Milam's wrath. Milam burst the door open and proceeded to the throne room where Velda was sitting. Transparent capsules filled with clear liquid were arranged systematically in the walls. Floating inside each capsule were unborn angels. The soul energy was being poured into these empty vessels. Because they didn't possess a physical body, they were beings that could only exist in the heaven. If they established a certain degree of ego, they could act on the surface world for a short time, but it required a bit more time for that to happen. Milam paid no heed to the angels and aimed straight to the throne. The heart of this heaven. It was the place where the god sat at the center of everything. Velda was now the ruler of this castle, in both name and reality. The automatic defense system of the Sky Castle reacted to Milam's murderous intent and judged her as an enemy. The alarm reverberated and guardian dolls appeared. However, they saw Milam's necklace and stopped moving. You cannot proceed beyond this point. Please turn back. The dolls warned Milam. However, Milam completely ignored them. Get out of the way. As she said so, Milam casually swung her fist and destroyed one of the dolls. The dolls couldn't attack Milam due to the necklace that showed that she was Velda's family. Nobody could stop Milam. That was until a woman stood up before Milam. Milam-sama, you have grown to be such fine la. The woman tried to approach Milam while being moved to tears. She was a beautiful and gentle woman wearing a solid black dress. Is that you, Salome? It's been a long time? Joy brightened up Milam's expression for a moment, and then, no, you are not Salome. Her expression was clouded over by sadness instantly. The woman who tried to embrace Milam was split into two. What dripped out from her wound wasn't blood but a transparent liquid of unknown ingredients. It was something that came out of a tattered body of a complex machinery rather than that of a living being. Ah, Milam-sama. You have grown, beep. She extended her hand to touch Milam's cheek and wiped the teardrop on it. Just like that, the doll modeled after Salome fell to the ground. She was the woman who had raised and educated Milam when she still very young. The woman who cared for Milam in the olden days had passed away. There's no way she's alive. Unlike Milam, who could live eternally, Salome was no more than one of the maids who served Lucia. There was no way that Salome, who was a human, is still alive. But Milam couldn't help but think of it. Whether her soul was called back to dwell inside the doll or not, such a thing was impossible. That was the conclusion. Milam came to the correct truth. Milam destroyed the doll without hesitation and severed her attachments. It should be the right thing, and yet the doll's satisfied smile and overflowing tears for some reason had made Milam confused. So, she was perhaps really. What a cruel thing to do. Even though I especially called back a deceased soul for your sake, I thought you would be pleased, so I prepared the present secretly? I guess you didn't like it? A clear voice reached Milam's ears. She didn't need to turn around. The owner of the voice was, "It's you, Velda. You bastard, I hope you are prepared for it." Prepared, for what I wonder? Against Milam's expression filled with wrath, Velda still had a cool smile. Two contrasting emotions were clashing as the two faced each other. She hadn't contacted Rimuru yet, but Milam wasn't worried about it. Since she felt residues of the hero Chloe at the time she buried Lucia just a little while ago. It was a very splendid sword slash that crossed over even multiple existence and reached Lucia's main body. It happened just for an instant, but Milam wouldn't fail to notice it. It was the time for the people who were being controlled by Lucia on the surface to be released. Although, it seemed Rimuru had schemed something as he lurked inside the shadow and perhaps already worked out some countermeasures for it. If she thought like that, even if she didn't bother to contact him, she believed that everything would be conveyed to Rimuru even if she stayed in this place. The fool called Vega was the first one to be eliminated by Rimuru's subordinates. The small fry called Kazarium seemed to have fallen as he couldn't defeat Leon. She also knew about de Gruel's defeat as Lucia was raising a fuss about it. Although where Dino was and what he was doing was unknown, Milam thought that it was pointless even to be worried about that cunning man. She knew that he would suddenly appear sooner or later after all. In other words, it could be said that Velda's subordinates were all defeated. It seems that your prided four unholy commanders have all been defeated. You're the only one left, Velda. I shall have you receive the reward for making me angry. As Milam said so, she pulled out the demonic sword, Earth, and took a stance. Velda looked at Milam with a smile while shrugging his shoulders. I'll play with you, Milam. Those words became the signal. Milam easily demonstrated continuous sword techniques. However, Velda avoided everything by a paper-thin margin. He was still unarmed and had leeway for his attitude against Milam. That ignited Milam's anger, and the demonic sword, Earth, began pulsing as if it had reacted to it. The rusts on the surface of the sword disappeared, showing its bluish-white blade. It seemed that the blade was strengthened as it absorbed waves of her anger. Die. Drago break. A ferocious slash like an embodiment of Milam's wrath was heading towards the defenseless Velda. However, too bad. You're a bit slow. Velda easily stepped back with just a bit movement and dodged Milam's sword. But that was as Milam's planned. The time for destruction is now. The moment Velda evaded Milam's sword, their position was now reversed. Milam stood in front of the throne while Velda stood on the ground below the throne. Plus, on the very rear of Velda's position, soared the Heaven Gate, the only gateway connecting the heaven and the surface world. From the very beginning, Milam aimed for the chance to simultaneously attack both Velda and the Heaven Gate. With the demonic sword, Earth, in her right hand, and her left hand charged with destruction intent. Right now, Milam unleashed Drago Nova at full power towards Velda. A bluish-white light beam that resembled a sparkling star's light overlapped repetitively and pierced through Velda. It pressurized the surroundings as the beam bulged and expanded to pierce everything towards the entrance from which Milam entered. A flood of light was born, blowing away all of the lined-up pillars. And beyond them was the soaring wall of the Heaven Gate. Everything was as Milam planned. The bluish-white light beam penetrated through Velda as its power increased and pierced the Heaven Gate. As the lights subsided, half of the sky castle had been cleanly blown away and disappeared. Only half of the castle remained behind where Milam stood. However, the Heaven Gate was still intact. It wasn't unharmed as there were numerous cracks on it, but it had endured Milam's strongest attack. No, that's not it. I saw the light had gotten refracted just before the impact. Could it be? Milam didn't let her guard down. That was the right decision. As one would expect from my daughter, I never expected that you can make cracks to this impassable gate. There was someone who spoke in an excited voice towards Milam. Needless to say, it was Velda. Velda, who was unharmed, had sat on the throne behind Milim before she noticed. And thus the fight between Milim and Velda is getting more intensified. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you guys have not watched my earlier videos, then please watch them. The links are in the description. And please check out my other channel Top Anime Sensei for the light novel of Tensura. And don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates.